Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lowe. On this show, we've been through the entire Deep Blue Sea franchise, trilogy, scene by scene. Now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films directed by Rennie Harlin, featuring sharks or aquatic action. This is another one of those aquatic action shark movies. It's hard to say if this is one of the bigger shark films. I think this is one of the bigger shark films of the lesser quality shark film, shall we say. This is one of the big bad ones. I think is how I'm going to describe this. We kind of run out of the major ones. We're now looking at we're mopping up the. There's a lot of shark films out there, and today we're talking about The Last Shark. What is The Last Shark? Well, you may also know it as Great White, or just Shark, or L'Ultimo Squalo, depending on where you are in the world. This is
The Ultima Squala is definitely the coolest of the various names.
It's a great. I mean, it means the same thing. It means The Last Shark, but it's a cool way of saying it. Italian sounds great. You gotta say. So this is 1981 Italian horror film directed by Enzo G. Castellari. It was in cinemas for a very short amount of time before Universal sued them, because it's basically Jaws and Jaws 2 crammed into one other film, starring James Franciscus and Vic Morrow and a bunch of Italians and people from Georgia who swap accents. There's a weird supporting cast in this one. We'll get there. And Joshua Sinclair and Giancarlo Preet is also amongst the cast as well. So it's basically the plots of Jaws and Jaws 2. There's a shark terrorizing a harbour town. There's a mayor running for state senator or governor or something. There's a regatta that gets plagued by the shark. People try and kill it. There's a guy who's basically Quint. And there's a bunch of shark-related deaths we're going to talk about. And we need someone to help talk about this. So you've already heard him. He's come back on the show for, I can't, he's been on for Empire of the Shark. That was the last time you were on. And let me just get, you were also on for, where are you? You've been on for Deep Sea 2 and Deep Sea 3. So this is your fourth time. You're in the Fourth Timers Club. Returning, it's Kevin's Sideways Shark Kulp. Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Delight to be here. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that.
Delighted to have you back. You're our go-to guy for this quality of shark film, shall we say?
I am not entirely sure that's a compliment, but I'm going to take it as one anyways because my standards are low. It's worth noting, by the way, that one of the reasons that they got sued so egregiously by Universal is because they released this movie in Japan as Jaws Returns. So, they're not a whole lot of shame. They got shut down pretty quickly, but they did their best to market it as an actual Jaws movie. Not so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point Universal is so irate about this that they still are annoyed if people try and show this. I heard, I think Finflix did an episode on this. I listened to earlier so about 10 years ago at this point, where the guest on that was like, he tried to he went somewhere where they were going to put on The Last Shark, but people putting it on were like, they weren't even billing it as Last Shark, they were putting it as like a surprise double feature. Like, we're going to show you one thing and then surprise, The Last Shark. And they weren't sure about the rights bit, so they contacted Universal to check, which they shouldn't have done. And Universal like, no, stop it now. And they had to put on something else. So Universal will never drop this case. But fortunately, it's on YouTube, so you can just watch it on YouTube. It's on there like 3 different times.
I think about The Last Shark as sort of the premiere of the Italian sharksploitation movies that came out after Jaws. And it's really one of the reasons it had pretty high production values, not so much with the plotting, I'd argue. But one of the things that really makes this movie interesting is a few other movies have blatantly stolen footage of it for their own movies. So, for instance, the movie Cruel Jaws didn't bother with their own shark. They just stole shark footage from Last Shark. Yes. The regatta scene from this movie is used in at least 2 other shark movies. Like, people just steal footage from it, possibly because it was declared sort of a persona non grata from Universal.
Yeah, I mean, if it's there, if no one's going to stop you, I guess. Yeah, but we haven't covered Cruel Jaws yet. I'm hoping to cover it soon. I hear.
Yeah. If you cover it, I will make a bid to be on the show with you because I have opinions about Cruel Jaws.
Well, then keep your calendar clear because hopefully we'll do it soon. Yeah, well, that's on the list for soon. So yeah, good.
Fantastic. I will note just for the record that of the 157 shark movies that my friend and I have seen, uh, Last Shark comes in at a much too high number 33. It does not deserve that position. We saw it early on. I My notes from originally watching it was a charmingly awful Jaws ripoff with the most charismatic sideways shark around. Kudos for practical effects, even terrible ones. Good chomps, awful plot. Uh,
Sure, that's all fair. Yep. We talk about your list often on this show. It comes up on shows you're not even on. And we covered House Shark recently,
oh, sure.
and
It-
which you have at number 21. And my guests and I
yes.
determined that that is too high for that terrible, terrible film.
We give movies. So here's the thing with House Shark, and not to go off on a tangent,
No, by
but
all means.
we give movies that are done on a micro budget more slack than movies that are done on a real budget. And the thing with House Shark, it was a pretty terrible movie. I agree, but everybody was having fun. There's a scene in that movie where they're ostensibly moving underwater on the
Yep.
basement of the house, and what's actually happening is that things are just hung from the ceiling on wires and everybody's moving in slow motion. And it was just the most charming special effect. Not a great special effect, but pretty charming. Um, so we rated it higher. I agree. It is perhaps higher than it should be, but that's
It's
okay.
because it's higher than Shark in Venice, which seems like a crime. It's higher than Deep Blue Sea 3, which come on. I,
Blue Sea 3 was a lot better than Deep Blue Sea 2. Okay, well, I'll give you that one. That seems reasonable.
But I mean, sometimes we just say throw your whole list out because you've got Shark Bait at number 17, and that's just an awful. Basically, before we get into the Last Shark, I wanted to ask, like, do you have like an era of shark movies that you enjoy the most? Because there's like you've got the classics, you've got Jaws, Deep Sea, etc. But there's like the Jaws rip-offs, with which the Last Shark falls into. Then you have like the Sharknado era of like tongue-in-cheek just it's the sci-fi channel ones. And then recently there's been a lot of very sincere shark films, the likes of Shark Bait, The Black Demon, Deep Fear, films we covered in like from the last few years. Do you have a preference amongst those three, or a different one you
Sure.
prefer?
It's been a while. I mean, we enjoyed the Meg too. It's not going to win any Oscars, but
No, it's not
of the more
nominated.
recent shark movies, I haven't been a huge fan of most of them. The Black Death in particular was terrible. It had so much potential that it then proceeded to squander egregiously. I think that of my personal favorites, once you get past that sort of Italian shark exploitation era after Jaws came out, the chunk of time when they were making Sand Sharks and Ghost Shark, boy, that was a really fun amount of time.
Yeah,
People weren't taking it serious. They were taking it seriously enough that they weren't sort of winking and nodding at the camera. They were clearly having fun when they were making the movies. And it's hard to beat that sort of, hey, there sure is a giant ghost shark that is rising up out of a toilet to eat somebody, or
sure.
coming down a slip and slide
Yep.
to eat a little fat kid.
Or in
You know,
a cup of water. In
yes,
the
or in a cup of
rain.
water.
In the rain. Ghost Shark is swimming in the rain. Yeah, I mean, it's a triumph of imagination, is the likes of Ghost Shark, where you come up with that idea and you run with it as far as you can. Uh,
I was not a huge fan of the Sharknado movies. Sharknado 6 comes on our list of 152 out of 157 because my commentary for Sharknado 6 was insulting. Why is it so insulting? Because you, that's why.
sure.
Also, there's an army of April. Yeah, they really lost the thread there, but not with Last Shark. Last Shark, they're really trying. You know, they're doing their best. It's just that their best isn't particularly good.
Yeah, I've yet to see a Sharknado, but we'll cover them at some point, I'm sure.
Well, you know what? Not missing much. Sharknado 2 was fun.
Okay.
After Sharknado 2 goes downhill fast.
I think I've listened to all of the How Did This Get Made episodes about them. So I have an idea, but that's about it. Good. Okay, so let's get into the last shark, shall we?
Oh,
So
fantastic.
uh, as I've been doing increasingly with these films, I watched this with my wife. She hated it every second, the whole thing. She's
She
like,
hated every second, really, even the second with a helicopter, because that was pretty spectacular. We'll get to there. We'll get to that.
I mean,
Okay.
like her commentary on these kinds of films is like, why do they make this? Who enjoys these kinds of things? And like, well, hi, hello, you married me. But also, like, more importantly, who listens to people talking about these kinds of things? Like, that's one. Like, I'm very grateful to all our listeners out there. My wife doesn't understand what you're doing right now, so reevaluate your life,
Listeners,
I
I'm
guess.
tremendously grateful. Thank you. It's and with Last Shark, they really tried sort of to riff on kind of the Jaws thing, right? It starts the classic way with people windsurfing in a regatta. The regatta goes terribly wrong. People lose limbs. People die, and
Yeah.
but they sort of did a heel turn compared to Jaws, where the mayor in Jaws is intrinsically the bad guy. In this one, the mayor does his best to make, or maybe I guess he's running for governor. I don't know if he's mayor. He
Yeah.
does his best to make things right, and I think we'll talk about how that goes.
He
Oh
does, but
boy,
I mean, he is still kind of the bad guy at times, but he does just a lot more on the positive side than Murray Hamilton does in Jaws. And I mean, there's even a sequence where the Quint character like defends the Mayo character and his actions. Like, this guy tried, but in a
yes.
strange Irish accent or Scottish or
So was I? Yes, Scottish. I think it was Vic
I'm
Morrow was trying to do a Scottish accent. He was slipping all over the place. This is the guy who is most notable for how he died because he was filming the Twilight Zone movie and he had his head chopped off by a helicopter.
That's where I know his name. I
That's
knew
where
I'd
you know his
heard
name
of
from.
Vic Morrow. That's where I'd
Yep.
heard him from. Okay, right. Because I've I was like, oh, it's Vic Morrow's in this one. I was like, what? I don't recognize that. Where? Okay, the guy who died in the Twilight Zone movie. Okay, yes, sure. Uh, yeah, John
So
Landis,
so we
bad
have
guy.
so we have okay, we've got Vic Morrow as a Captain Quint who
Ron
is
Hammer.
possibly Scottish, unclear.
I don't know.
Um yeah, we've got the hero of the movie who is Peter Benton, who is an author. No one quite says what kind of books he writes. He's apparently an authority on catching sharks, and we never find out why.
Well, he's there's a picture of him standing next to a shark that's been caught by Vic Morrow, I think. So I think he's notable for like being friends with a shark hunter. And
Right.
that's
Yeah.
and he's like a writer who is suffering from a bit of a dry patch writing wise. He's lacking inspiration. Is this film, like with the setup this film has, it should have ended with him writing The Last Shark by Peter Benton. Which is that a nod to Peter Benchley?
Yes.
Like,
Definitely not Peter Benchley. I'm sure that was Peter Benton is very different from Peter Benchley in a way that is not going to get you sued.
sure,
Yes, and instead, of course, it ends with him punching a television reporter in the
yeah,
face.
inspiring
Uh,
the end of Die Hard.
right.
It must be.
So we've got Peter Benton. We've got his wife who's involved in local politics and screams a lot.
Yep, Gloria,
We've
played
got
by
his
Michaela Pignatelli.
Okay, got it. Everybody's dubbed, right? I think they
Yes,
filmed it in Italian, except for the people who were speaking English, and then just dubbed over everything, as far as I
even
can
some of the
tell.
people speaking English, I think, were dubbed. Like there's three male like teenagers or late or early 20s who were all
Right.
dubbed by I think the same person. They all sound exactly the same, and they all have horrendous perms. Uh,
Saves money, Jay. The, we've got and we've got Jenny, so we've got Peter's daughter. We've got the guy who's running for governor. What's the actor's name?
Joshua Sinclair playing William Wells, who has his own group of cheerleaders with their own personal cheer. Uh, in one scene.
Nice work if you can get it. And we've got he's got a son who doesn't do a whole lot except for get
Nope.
somebody's leg eaten and get slapped in the face.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. So, how do you want to do this? You want to walk through the movie? What makes sense?
I'm happy to walk through the movie. That's because then we can talk about it's the shark related deaths are the main reason that we're here. So we can walk through those as we go. So yeah, it opens up with like 3 solid minutes of just a guy windsurfing.
Oh,
With
you're forgetting the horrible, horrible music, though.
with some horrible music in the background. I was
Mm.
getting there. Yeah, it's an odd opening to a shark movie. Just listening to this terrible '80s pop or '70s pop, I guess it would have been. With just this guy. I
Yeah,
wasn't. It wasn't. I'm no windsurfer. I've never windsurfed, but I don't find anything he's doing terribly impressive. It's like he's trying to be showing off, but they forgot to hire somebody who knows how to do it.
thank God it wasn't just me. I had the exact same impression, and I thought it was because I didn't know enough about windsurfing. My assumption is that anyone who windsurfs or parasails in a shark movie, just like if anyone underwater welds, they're going to get eaten by a shark.
Sure.
Like that's sort of the default assumption. But if anyone deserved to, it was probably him. He was not great at it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So he's out windsurfing. There's some people on the shore kind of watching him a little bit. There's an upcoming windsurfing regatta. We talked about it. There's a very vindictive radio DJ who's like mocking people that are listening to him and someone having a conversation with him. But the guy out on the water, he's like the best windsurfer they've got. Oh, he is until the shark arrives and has some kind of explosives on its nose because as soon as it taps this little windsurfer board, it just explodes up in the air, which it happens multiple times in this film.
It's the shark stores all of its kinetic energy in its nose. So there's this lovely scene where he's on the board and then he looks back and the rear half of the board is missing with a bunch of really fake bite marks out of
Yep.
it. He didn't get tipped. He didn't notice there was no collision, just chomp. Um, and then, of course, he dies hideously off camera.
Yes, unfortunately.
We we see him, then we don't see him. That DJ spent a lot of time featured in this opening scene for somebody that we never see or hear from
Right.
again.
Like you think this would be a character who's going to be shown later, like doing commentary on the regatta, maybe, or just he's going to be the local like stay out of the water. There's a shark in town, kind of thing. But no, this is the opening scene, and then never again. That's it.
They must have only had him for the day. You know, I
Maybe.
do like the fact that he stopped talking whenever the people on the beach were talking. And it seems like he was having a conversation with the people on the beach, even though, of course, he was however many miles away. So he was a magical DJ as far as I can tell.
Yeah, which I feel like he's probably friends with the Wells kid that he's talking to, Billy Joe. Uh, yeah, so he's got they've probably gonna have had fisticuffs in the past, perhaps. I don't know. Either way, we can never see this guy again, so it doesn't matter. So
We
um,
meet Jenny here. Jenny, of course, is the daughter of our hero, Peter Benton.
yeah,
She has no real purpose in the movie other than to be attacked by a shark and to act as a love interest.
I mean, and even then, barely. Like she's
Uh,
like, she's a love interest in it. There's a character who sort of kisses her at one point. And that's about it. She doesn't get a whole lot to do. But then I guess none of the kids really do. The kid characters are all just
Not
kind
really.
of like, we're here.
Yes,
We're gonna
exactly.
be in trouble. We're gonna steal a boat. So one of us will get slapped in the face. That's about it,
I think
really.
the purpose of the kids is so that they can hold a regatta for the shark to attack. This is where we originated our own personal term of regretta. A regretta is any regatta in a shark movie where the people get attacked by sharks and they wish afterwards they wish they hadn't actually held the race. And this one, as I mentioned, was the footage from this was ripped off and used in another two or three shark movies. It was that good a regatta.
I mean,
Um,
there's a lot of people taking part. Like there's like 100 windsurfers there, but it's not shot very excitingly. And it's like a lot of it seems to be like, is that person just standing still? I can't really tell. Like it's windsurfing again. It's not the most exciting sport.
better than that. So at that point, and we're skipping forward a little bit, but the shark has actually let's come back to that. Okay, so our boy gets the person who's going to win the regatta gets eaten
Isn't
by a
gonna win
shark.
anymore. Yeah,
No, and they find pieces of his board. It was washed up as someone on a ship or a boat finds one.
that's Vic
One's
Morrow. He
oh,
like
that's
finds one. He rubs his fingers over the shark bites and then smells them. Which I thought was very odd thing to do. But there we are.
don't you kink shame him. He,
No, I apologize.
he,
I'll never yuck someone's yum.
he's
Yeah,
a he has a he's a lonely man, and you know what he gets to out on the ocean we
yeah.
shouldn't
He,
probably
he
judge.
likes what he likes, and that's none of my business.
They cut to, I guess, Governor Wells, who has a truly regrettable mustache.
Not the only
Everybody in
one in
this
this
movie
film.
mm, there's the era of porn stashes, where
I
you
wanted
just
well,
look.
looking into the production company of the film. There's a lot of adult films in their past. Some of the people who made this, shall we say? So I
Oh
don't
God.
think they're unfamiliar with moustaches. I mean, there are so many. I was expecting the shark to have one at one point, but it didn't. We don't quite went that far. So has
Do
there
not
been a
recommend.
shark with a moustache in any of the films that you've covered?
There's not been any sharks with a mustache.
Yet.
So,
Okay.
yet, exactly. There's, Santa Jaws has a shark with a Santa hat on it,
It does
but
indeed.
that's
It does
about as
indeed.
far as we go. I will point out that the truly horrible movie 90210 Shark Attack, um, is we're watching it and wondering how it could possibly be so bad. It turns out it's filmed by a director who traditionally does porn.
Okay.
So, and the way that his camera lingers on some of the actors makes it very clear where his true love is, and that is not a girl possessed by a shark spirit. Um,
Sure.
but yeah.
Okay.
Anyways,
Maybe we'll get there one day. I don't know.
oh, don't rush is all, what I'm telling you. So Governor Wells has a fundraiser, I guess, for some reason. Peter's wife, who what's her character's name? Do you have it written down?
Gloria.
Gloria.
No,
Okay, she
Gloria with a G,
Gloria.
Gloria, or just or
She
Screaming Lady if you like.
screaming
She,
lady. She is good
yeah,
at screaming. She, for some reason, is supposed to bring Peter. Peter keeps ditching. In this case, he ditches because they found the chewed up surfboard. And Governor Wells is the kind of person who, when somebody says, I need several days to do this thing, and he says,
half
I
an
need it
hour.
in half an hour. He puts his hand on the other person's arm, stares deeply into his eyes, and says, Bob, I'm relying on you,
Yeah,
which tells us really a lot about the character right there, I think.
and Bob there is his kind of camera guy, who has his whole subplot in this film that we'll get to, but he's the true villain of the piece, I think. Who a punch in the face,
he is
not enough of a comeuppance as a punch in the face. He needed more than that.
really true. The it's we get to meet more about the Robert Shaw ripoff, played by
Yep.
Vic Morrow. The they for somebody toes in. I wrote down the word shark secret, and I don't really know why I wrote down the word shark secret, but I assume that they're trying to keep the fact that our boy was eaten by a shark undercut secret so that it doesn't ruin the regatta.
Yes, that does not work. It ruins the regatta regardless. Uh, it's a lot of bars. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they
yes, so this boat is pulled in, and Ron goes and he explores the boat, and he finds. Well, I mean, someone comes out screaming, and Ron goes in, and he finds something, and the camera rests on a hand, and then it travels up the arm, and then it keeps traveling, and the arm doesn't go with it. Like it's just detached limb. Love it.
just severed arm.
Severed
However,
arm.
how about it's a severed arm inside of the boat
Yep.
in a boat that doesn't have a hole in the bottom, as far as I
Nope.
can tell. Like it's listing a little bit.
And it's like
So
fully inside. It's like in a cabin underneath something. Like
I'm wondering, did the shark use doors? Did the shark bite off the rest of the hand, and the hand kind of finger clawed its way in? Like I have so many questions here, Jay.
yeah, I mean, I can imagine like the shark biting somebody in midair who their arm is still dangling over the boat, and the shark just kind of bites the arm off and eats the rest of the person, and the arm just kind of bounces into the cabin. But it's the fact that it's so far down and underneath something. It's perplexing.
It is indeed perplexing, and this is where we get our first fake out. Is what looks like a shark fin
I like
drifts
this.
past, and Peter's wife screams, Gloria screams, as she is wont to do, but it's not a shark fin.
It's not a
It's
shark
the
fin.
upside down surfboard fin left
Yeah.
over from the kid who got eaten.
Which, when we see the quality of the actual shark fin later in the film, it could well have been. It's the same material. So, yeah, you had to. I was fooled initially. Like, oh, it's the shark. Oh, it's not the shark.
You're like, it's a little small. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just the floating
it's far
surfboard
away.
showing up at the most convenient time.
Yeah. So
Um,
they talk about canceling the regatta, and
yes.
Wells, I wrote this down. No damn shark is going to screw up a year of hard work. It's what he says. It's taken a year to plan. I don't think it's because it's he's tied the regatta into his governorship campaign. I think it's unclear as to the two are tied together. I guess.
Sure, I could throw a regatta with a week's notice. Like
Yeah.
either he's bad at his job, or I don't know, boy. But
There's-
I will give him credit, right? He does his best. He doesn't just let those kids out there to poorly windsurf without any kind of protection. He spends what is probably tens or hundreds of thousands of
oh,
dollars
more.
on shark netting, like covering off this huge area of their
Yeah.
little bay.
Like from the surface to the bottom of the sea. This is the biggest net in the world. This is huge. This is like we talk about the mesh nets around the Aquatica and Deep Blue Sea. The titanium on the bottom, the steel on the top. This is that kind of thing, and like Russell Franklin spent I think like $2 million on fencing, and that so it's comparable to that. It's ridiculous.
You
Just
think that they could have spent that money a little bit, just to buy people lunch because they couldn't go out on their windboards or their surfboards. I don't
yeah,
know.
just like make a foot race and give everyone 20 quid. I don't know. Like just do something else. It doesn't need to be on the water. Oh, but yeah, so
It's
that's
ridiculous. The shark, of course, batters its way in because it has nothing better to do than be a bunch of stock footage of sharks banging up against gratings or
yeah, yeah.
nets.
Well, there's three kinds of shark we're showing. It's all great white shark, but we have there's the
For the
stock
dolphin
footage.
that I think they
Sure.
filmed at one point.
There's stock footage of mostly sharks. There's a model that they use for the surface that we'll get to, and then there's the
Oh, we
undersea
will.
shots of like a bath toy or some. It's a very kind of static. I
It is
calling it a
most distinctly a bath toy. Yeah.
calling it a puppet would be generous. I think it's kind of it has a little bit of movement, but not a lot. You can kind of I swear at some bits you can see like a hand at the back of it just kind of pushing it along. But
There have
that's
been a couple of movies that have actually used shark puppets. For
yeah,
instance, I
house
think
shark.
that yeah, well, okay, House Shark. Oh, that was somebody in a huge
That was
house
yes, that was
shark suit. But there's been a couple of movies that just used a puppet. Ouija Shark 2, I think, did that. And I'll tell you, it looked a lot better than this. Uh,
good. Well, yeah. So it's that kind of shark bath toy that breaks through the fence. Although there are some shots of they put an actual fence in front of a shark and the shark attacked it. But like when they cut between model shark, actual shark, the water quality is never the same. The camera quality is never the same. The aspect ratio is rarely the same. It's all just like it's yeah. It's hard to get a good sense of space and location in this film because of how clearly it is that these things weren't all shot in the same place at the same time. So there's action scenes
here's,
later on. Like, where are we now? Same place, but the shark's not in. Okay,
Ask
okay,
you a question, Jay. So, if you're making a movie called, let's say, The Last Shark,
sure.
and your movie is about a shark, where do you want to cheap out on your special effects?
I'm gonna say the regatta is where I will cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will spend
Uh,
as much money as I can on the shark.
really? Well, that
Yeah.
makes you a better filmmaker than the filmmakers who made The Last Shark.
Wow. Yeah. It's not for me. Actually, it is for me to say on a podcast talking about. Yes, I agree. I would have put more. This is a yeah. I mean, how much? There's no listed budget for this film, and I'm not surprised. Uh,
So here's an
yeah,
interesting thing, right? As far as I can tell, the purpose of the shark hunting was for two things. One is to make the potential governor seem more like a good guy, like he's trying, right?
sure.
But also somehow the shark ends up with a buoy caught in its mouth by
Yep.
going through the netting. I don't really understand how that happened,
Nope.
but the purpose is, of course, to be able to show where the shark is without showing the shark. The same way they use the big yellow barrels in the original Jaws.
Yes, which
When
makes
Jaws
sense in
did it,
that
it was
film. Yeah.
yeah. When Jaws did it, it was terrifying. When these guys do it, it's embarrassing. Because the shark then storms in and, of course, has a whole bay full of slowly moving, poorly talented windsurfers for the regatta.
I have to
And
I have to talk about something before we get to like prior
please
to the
go ahead.
regatta we have the land-based regatta ceremony celebration party kind of thing where the camera just kind of pans across and rests on there's these couple of teens walk across and there's like a telephone box sized thing which they kind of press an unseen button on. A door pings open, and a guy starts singing inside it with a harmonica. It's like Bob Marley, not sorry, it's Bob Dylan kind of style singing. And like, what is this? What? There's a human music box with a harmonica, and it's the most bizarre thing I've seen in any film. Of just this guy, because he's just waiting in there until someone opens the flap, and then the flap opens, he just starts singing. Like, does he
He's
do a song and then
so
it shuts
lonely,
again?
Jay. He's so lonely.
Is
He's
he
sitting
part of
going,
the
please,
celebration?
please don't close my box back up. I have no idea. I assume it's somebody's cousin who knew how to play the harmonica who really wanted space in the movie, and they're like, "Fine, we'll put you in a box."
I had just so many questions about this guy, and like prior to this, there's a scene of like people just relaxing on the beach. She's one lady is like, "I'm going to run into the sea," and so you have just a slow motion shot of her running in a bikini into the sea, and everyone else runs into the sea, and then we cut to the shark breaking through the fence underwater and getting hit by the buoy, and everyone runs back out of the sea, but no one knows that the shark has done that. So as everyone runs in the sea, and then we get everyone running out of the sea as if like, "There's a shark! Run out of the sea!" Because everyone comes out in unison, but that's they just come out of the sea, and
A lot of
that's
panic. I
it.
think a couple people get trampled. Nobody gets eaten, however,
Yeah,
because you know.
the
Uh,
shark's not there yet. Yeah. So now,
no.
so we have Wells as cheerleaders, who my wife. That was her least favorite part of the film. Her comment was awful, awful, awful. Was what she said.
Didn't
Uh,
like the
I
cheerleaders. Oh my
think it was more. I
goodness!
think it was their cheer that she didn't enjoy. They just spelled
I
out
I don't
Wells.
even think I remember what the cheer was. Was it for Wells? What was it? Was it
Yes,
for the
it was.
shark?
It was mainly spelling Wells's name.
Wow.
But yeah, it's just it's not good. Uh,
Well, you know, he did, after spending all that money on the Sharknetty, he didn't have a lot of money left. He could afford a box with a harmonica guy in it and some high school cheerleaders.
But there is a whole other band as well. There's the guy in the box with the harmonica, and then there is a band. So I feel like he showed up, is about to play, and the band stuffed him in a box like it was a locker at school. And like, you're in here now.
Maybe
We're
it's
playing.
probably this is all about bullying. That's really what the movie is about. So as the regatta starts, right, and they fire a gun or something, then the people start windsurfing poorly and slowly in a very tight clump. And we see this floating red buoy approach the various sharks. Something remarkable happens, which is that as the red buoy starts to approach a surfboard, the person on the surfboard falls off it.
Yep.
They don't get eaten, they
Nope.
don't get bumped.
No one gets eaten in this scene until later. All of the windsurfers survive. it's
Really, really takes a lot of the fun out of it. I'm not going to lie.
it is
Oh,
a bit, yeah,
but
it's odd.
there's probably 15 people who fall off their surfboards for no discernible reason whatsoever.
Yeah, but
Um,
then Peter Benton sees this from up in his he's up in a high tower watch thing with Jenny. And I get out of the water, out of the water. And Wells has got his megaphone guy, who I don't know what else his role is, like publicist or something. Um, he's in the water calling the shots with the megaphone. He's like, everyone, get out of the water, get to the boats. Out of the water, get to the boats. And everyone does. Everyone falls off their surfboards and gets out of the water and gets to the boats. And he forgets to follow
as
his
we
own advice.
know, the fastest way to get out of the water when you're out in deep water is to fall off your surfboard.
Yes. Well, that means there are some people who do try and they're in surf to the beach, and it's a state of panic. I can understand that, but what I can't understand is why
Okay.
he didn't get out of the water because he is in a boat that he could presumably power in some fashion. He just kind of stands there, sees the buoy coming towards him, and he's like, "Oh no!" And the shark nose touches the boat, and what happens when that happens? The
Ooh.
boat
The
rockets
boat
up
shoots up in the air as
with a
somebody who is most
mannequin.
definitely not a
No,
mannequin.
he's a
Definitely
mannequin
not a
who's been
mannequin.
nailed to the bottom of the boat. So when the boat is sideways, this guy is also like parallel to the sea at this point, unmoving. So there's this wooden figure.
He wasn't a good actor. Maybe that was the problem.
Sure.
Oh yes. And is this the first place that we see the shark the big
The
shark model?
yes, the surface model is so when the guy lands in the water, he becomes human again, and the big shark rears up out of the water like the Universal Studios ride shark does, which is big head, and its mouth is permanently open in a little bit of a snarl. The teeth can kind of move a little bit, but that's about it.
I
And
want to talk about this model. Okay,
oh, please
I
do.
love I love this shark so
Me
much.
too.
He is charming. So they did their best to make something that was really scary, but the problem is it doesn't float quite straight. The reason that Jay introduced me as Kevin's sideways shark Kulp is because, well, the shark always sort of lifts at about a 10 to 15-degree angle. So it's in the water, but it's kind of tilted, sort of funny. Um, and they really do their best to make it look scary, but mostly it bobs there.
It does. It just kind of it's just there. And but this guy still gets eaten somehow.
Oh, he
Uh,
sure does get eaten. Absolutely.
and yeah, it's it's a death. He's not with us anymore. And we see no remorse from Wells at the loss of his employee. Um, sorry, I'm just watching the mannequin again. And when we cut back to the people on land, there's a guy waving a Confederate flag, which I is an odd choice to put in any film, I think.
Maybe the shark was a rebel. Maybe those kids were rebelling against authority in the same way that the southern U.S. rebelled against the North. Unclear.
I mean,
Um,
this was shot partially in Georgia, I think. So
that might be
maybe
why. Also in Malta, I think. Yeah.
the
Uh,
Italian filmmakers didn't quite understand the history of the South, of the
Quite
American
possible.
South.
So the all right. So the everybody, nobody particularly panics about the fact that somebody gets eaten by the shark. Um, our heroes decide to go out hunting the shark in an underwater cave at the same time that the teenagers think they're all badass and decide to go hunting the shark themselves.
Well, the teenagers decide to do that because Wells has a meeting with another publicist guy who tells him basically in no uncertain terms that he needs to be the one to catch and kill this shark because that'll make him governor.
Oh, so let's be really clear here. That is not a publicist guy. That is organized crime.
Sure.
That is
Okay.
an organized criminal who has been funding Wells's political career,
I see.
and
Okay.
who is about to watch his entire investment go belly up because Wells is unable to stop the shark.
Ah,
So he basically threatens his political career and he threatens his funding, and says, "Fix this problem."
I didn't get that. So he reminded me of the Jonathan Hyde character from Titanic of Mr. Ismay. He just gave me a real like, Ismay vibe, and Ismay's a publicist, so that's just where I made that leap. I think
Be sure that he's a political donor who is
I
bankrolling
definitely got the
Wells
villain
for
vibe.
governor.
Yeah.
Yes, and we never see him again, so it doesn't really matter all
No,
that much.
so it's the guy that should have been eaten at some point, but crime pays apparently. So Wells's kid overhears this and is like, "Oh, I'm gonna make my dad proud because he's not proud of me ever since I got this perm," and just steals his dad's boat. And so he and his three friends, which includes Jenny, Peter's daughter, they all go out to try. They take a shotgun and some
It's what you use to kill sharks,
yeah,
shotguns.
and a big slab of meat. This film is sponsored by big slabs of meat. There is no fewer than at least like four or five, like half a cow, at various times
Never
used in
heard of
this.
chum. They've never heard of fish guts. They think, I know how to attract a shark. Let's buy $100 piece of meat.
Right.
That sounds great.
One guy has spare ribs from a horse. Is his like literal quote? Spare ribs from a horse is the one of the last guys.
Welcome to Georgia.
It's unpleasant. Uh,
Uh,
so So yeah, so the our two heroes, Peter and Ron Hammer. Ron Hammer, not said enough. His full name in this film. Uh,
yes, it's
Fisherman Ron
you
Hammer.
you'd think that he would have done better overall. They head out. They
They
go shark
hammerhead out.
hunting. Oh, I see what you did there. That's good. They get caught in a cave. They get caught in a cave because the shark traps them there.
Yep.
My wife was walking through the living room at one point and said, "Look, it's a sharkitect." As the shark systematically collapses the cave by nosing huge boulders down to trap them within. And the only way that they can get out, luckily, they have explosives with them, and they use those explosives in this tiny little underwater cave in a way that blows open the opening and almost certainly would kill them or blow out their eardrums. But that's not what happens.
Sharkitect is my favorite thing ever said on a podcast. And that should be the name of a film. Um,
Should be a name of a phone. I
damn,
would watch that movie.
let's make it.
Yes.
Yeah. So they just the shark. This is kind of Jaws 4 levels of shark setting a trap. This is a very smart shark. It turns out. It's
It is a smart shark. It's all that giant head has a lot of brains in it. Gloria's up on the boat screaming into a microphone things like Peter, you're down to 3 minutes of air, despite the fact that Peter doesn't have a headset on and has no way to respond to her. Apparently, she didn't notice the underwater explosion. A little unclear. But Ron Hammer isn't he knocked unconscious
Yes, he
by
is.
the
Yeah,
shark? Okay.
Peter has to drag him. I think his oxygen gets cut in some way, Ron. So Peter basically drags him to the surface and CPR, and he wakes up and like, did we get him? And it's like, didn't we almost got you? Like, did we get him? No, is the response.
Scene is notable by everybody there having just come out of the water and having perfectly dry hair.
Sure. I mean that happens a lot in these films. I think.
That tropical sun is awfully hot. At the same time, our kids now have stolen Wells's yacht and have gone on their own shark hunting mission. Apparently, the shark can be in more than one place at a time. I guess it collapses the cave and heads out immediately to find the kids who are nowhere nearby. But it's a smart
Well,
shark.
the boats do see each other at one point, so they're not that far apart. But
Fair enough. Fair
it's a
enough.
big shark. It's apparently the shark's like 30 feet long. We're told, so it's a big shark.
Shark. Yeah, they incorrectly say that the largest shark seen was a great white shark was 28 feet. The actual number is more like 22 feet, something like that, which is still pretty big.
Yeah.
They see the shark. They unload shotguns at the shark when the shark is far too
Well,
far away to hurt.
yes. They're not really aiming. They're just kind of firing like in every direction. Like the shark's straight ahead, and they're just kind of firing at 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. It might hear the shotgun. Someone will get hit by it.
Like this was a gentler time when people didn't care that children had unlicensed shotguns out on boats. That
Yep.
was totally fine.
So they decide, hey,
And
let's dangle the meat in the water.
oh,
Never
right.
understood the numerous times meat is dangled in the water. I never fully understood the plan here as to what they were going to do. I guess the shot would come near enough when they shoot it with the shotgun. Would
Some meaty tea bag, I think. Yeah, something like that. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but what it did mean is that it gave Jenny the chance to do what she does best, which is fall in the water off a boat.
Yep.
Because the shark comes, grabs the meat. They have a bunch of scenes of stock footage of sharks eating meat. The shark bangs the boat. Jenny falls off the boat.
Yep.
And what happens next was legitimately a surprise for me.
Yeah, because she's trying to reach up, they're trying to reach down. They're grabbing each other's arms, they're slipping down, and then we see a shark somewhere else, presumably because how it was filmed, with something in its mouth. Then hard cut to an ambulance, and the shark has removed Jenny's leg. She is
As that's
missing
it.
a
That
leg.
was a leg
Yeah,
flopping in its mouth.
yeah.
Yeah,
Could
it's
not tell watching it first time around. But you put those pieces together when Peter's talking to a paramedic and he's like, "Ah, she'll still feel that missing leg for maybe a year." Oh, okay. I guess she lost a leg then. Fair enough.
She sure did. I didn't expect that. I expected Jenny to be active, but no, she gets her leg eaten by a shark, and that I guess inspires Peter to greater heroics.
Yeah, we get a very like heartfelt scene in the hospital where he's like talking to a comatose Jenny, and he's like, "Yeah, I remember when you used to walk around, and you're gonna walk out of this hospital with a big smile on your face." And she's probably
He
not.
said that you're going to walk out of this hospital, and my wife and I turned to each other, and I said, "Is she?" And
I
like,
mean,
I don't think she's going to hop. She's going to hop out of this hospital. That I would believe.
I don't know what the
Um,
prosthetics were like in 1981, or how crutches were, but she could probably she could leave
so
out on foot. I would say.
it's an important plot point here that, of course, the mayor's son, what's his name, Bobby Joe or something.
Yeah, yeah. It's William Bobby Joe Wells. Is his full name according to
So
IMDb.
he had lied and
Billy
stolen his
Joe.
dad's boat. Billy Joel, their southern name, and stolen his dad's boat. And the father, supposedly Governor Wells, is there in the hospital, sees the son. The boy apologizes, and the governor slaps him.
Yep.
That's the last time he speaks to his son
And
when he slaps him in the face.
And prior to that, Wells talks to Peter and apologizes and admits fault. So this guy, terrible politician, awful.
But
Like,
breaking that Jaws mold of the evil mayor, right? Like Wells kind of redeems himself a little bit here.
yeah, and he's
Um,
like, okay, well, I've caused these problems. My kid has caused these problems. There's this crime syndicate that wants me to catch the shark. Let's go and catch this goddamn shark. So he takes his helicopter and his helicopter pilot and a giant
chunk of
chunk of
meat.
meat
Yeah.
and heads out and he puts the big chunk of meat on the end of a winch and dangles it into the water. And this is my real like, okay, what is the plan?
Right. So
And
what is the plan here? Are they planning to hook the shark on the meat and
then
then tow
fly
the shark
away with it.
by fly the shark by helicopter? I do not think that he has thought this plan through, honestly.
He was like, if that
Um,
is the plan, is if the plan is get shark onto meat and lift helicopter up. A 30-foot long shark, very heavy. But B, shark
heavy.
can let go of meat. Like shark,
I mean, technically, what if shark was hungry? I mean, shark just ate a leg. That was just, whetting its appetite. Uh, and Wells is here in the helicopter. The helicopter pilot is named Bernie. We know his name is Bernie because Wells yells Bernie about 15 times. Guy never has a single bit of facial expression. Not one.
I mean, there's a little bit of fear when his helicopter is sideways and in the water, but that's about
Okay,
it.
little bit then. This is clearly the best scene of the movie
Yep,
because Wells is trying to hook the shark, and the shark is eating the meat at the end of the winch. The winch jams because apparently Wells doesn't understand how winches work.
that's what winches do. We've seen Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah,
That's what happens.
that's right. Winches jam. And Wells falls into the water. The Bernie lowers the helicopter down low enough for, and it's not a pontoon helicopter; it's a normal
No,
helicopter, low enough for Wells to grab onto the landing struts. They rises up. He drops again. Bernie tries to pick him up again, and he manages to grab the strut of the helicopter, so he's in the air, his legs extended, when what is truly the greatest special effect of the entire movie occurs.
yep, that shark it bites those legs. Those legs ain't there
He,
anymore.
he sure does. The shark raises up out of the water, chomps down on the legs, stretching Wells's body to an impossible angle, and just chomps off his legs. And then we've got Wells with no legs hanging onto the bottom of the helicopter before, of course, dropping off down into the water. And then the shark just basically goes to Shark Town, eating the would-be governor.
He does give a little bit of a when the legs are taken off, but it's not enough of a scream. I feel like it would have been more than that.
Probably
But
thinking about his political career disintegrating. It's my guess.
maybe.
Um,
I mean,
maybe he's
if he'd survived, he'd be like, oh, if this guy lost his legs to sharks, like he'd be a hero. He'd be some kind of a. I tried to save the town, kill the shark, and I lost my legs.
that
Write me for
happened. I don't
governor.
know. That's a, it really would be, but that's not what happens. He's probably thinking about how the last thing he said to his son was slapping him.
Sure.
Um, Bernie, of course, tries to pull away. The shark is having nothing about that. The shark, in the same way that we saw it eat a boat earlier and manipulate rocks, the shark decides to dismantle the helicopter and basically chews its way through the side, crashing the helicopter and eating Bernie.
Yep. Yep. Because he's. I don't know what Bernie's doing. He's flying really low over the water. If he's looking for Wells, who that's optimistic at this point, like a shark's just eating his
A shark
legs.
enthusiast, it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah, because he's just
But
like
yeah, it's a little bit.
looking around, and yeah,
Bernie
he's
gets
gone.
chomped, and barely shows any emotion in the process. But we think like this is really the shark's shining moment, in my opinion. Um, yeah, and there it is. So we cut then to Peter and Vic Morrow. Ron Hammer,
Yeah,
Hammerhead.
good
Uh,
mark too.
Yes, exactly. Who are also out looking for the shark, saying things like, "Boy, I sure wish that helicopter was around. We could use it to spot." Well, too
Yeah,
bad, buddy.
and they
Um,
argue over who should be the one to kill the shark because Peter promised his daughter that he would get it, but Ron. has experience with killing sharks. There
That's
is
right.
one dynamite belt, there's one detonator, someone needs to stay on the boat. So rare for a film, they make the right decision that Ron is the one to go down and do it, and the hero of the film just has to sit up on the boat and like ah, just be annoyed. So
It,
that's
it was
yeah,
a it was a pretty good decision. It doesn't end well for Ron. He gets tangled in cable and dragged away by the shark. We never see him get eaten because he, spoiler alert,
he
does not get
doesn't. He
eaten
comes
yet.
back.
But he sure doesn't come back. And so Peter's just sitting there watching that cable disappear, knowing that there's nothing he can do.
Yeah, because like he sees some kind of distress signal and dives in to try and save Ron, and it doesn't work.
Does not
So
work. No.
he leaves. He's on his boat. He comes back later because now cut back to land,
Subplot.
where we've lost one shark expert. That's okay. A new one has arrived. Uh,
He's a professional shark killer because those are a thing.
yeah, he's a
And
shark cowboy. He's all in denim with like an eagle design on the back of his shirt and a
yep,
special explosive shark killing rifle that will definitely come into play in the climax. It has a big setup. It'll definitely be used and won't just be dropped
definitely.
in the water immediately and never seen
Definitely
again.
not. No. And this again, there's a bunch of people down here at the pier. The television reporter, who's desperate for a good story, has set up like cameras underneath the pier and has hidden meat underneath the pier with the goal of bringing in the shark. And there's shark hunters there, going, looking all tough. And somebody in the crowd says, "Who's that guy with a gun?" Nobody seems worried.
Yeah,
Nobody
well,
seems
yeah.
concerned.
It's a
It's a
different
simple
time.
time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's
And
40 odd
then
years ago.
in a glorious bit that sort of harkens back to the original Jaws, the shark shows up, chomps the bait, and drags the whole pier off of the land where it's attached and drags it out to sea with a bunch of people on it.
And like most of these people fall off and swim back to shore when it's very close because they're sensible. But
Not everybody.
yeah, there's six characters that we've seen before, so they're the ones that are stuck on there. So we have Gloria, Peter's wife. We have the three surviving kids, like including Wells's kids, who do not know that their dad is dead, and in fact never find out that their dad dies. They survive the film, but never
Never,
find out that their dad dies.
they
Uh,
never do. That's right. I bet
we
they missed
have
that helicopter.
we have one of the cameraman who tied the meat to the dock. He's on there with his camera filming, and then the shark cowboy, the new shark cowboy, he's on there, and
It's
that
actually
get
a subsidiary cameraman. The
yes,
actual newspaper, not newspaper, television reporter has to survive to get punched at the end.
sure.
So this is his employee. And the shark hunter, right?
I feel like this raft sequence could have been like if it was made today, this would be its own film. This like these six people on a raft, a
Uh,
shark drags it out, and it's just 85 minutes of these guys trying to survive on a raft, and I wouldn't like this film. It
oh
would be
God,
just kind of boring.
it was like that Alicia Silverstone movie, whichever one it was. Was that Shark Bait, where she and her husband are in Fiji and their house gets washed out to sea?
Oh, I haven't
And
seen that one yet.
well, don't rush.
Uh,
It's not great. It came
is
out
it
last year.
is it
Uh,
the Requin? Was that the Requin?
yes, it's the Rakin. Yes,
Oh, okay. I'd never heard the word said.
yeah, it's French for shark. It's Rakin.
Okay, right.
Yes, that's the one. It is not great.
Okay.
But basically, that
Sure.
movie is a third of people whining, for third travelogue, a third of people whining at each other, and a third of people getting eaten by a shark. But the third of people getting eaten by the shark is basically this scene for the last shark, with them in this little area and being threatened by a large, adorable shark model that keeps popping up out of the ocean and growling and roaring
It's yes,
like
it
sharks do.
roars. The shark roars.
It sure does.
So yeah,
Yep.
so we have six people in there initially. The cameraman keeps filming, gets too close to the water, gets eaten by a shark. As well, he kind of falls in and he's screaming, and they pull him out, but then he pull out the top half.
Gloria
And
screams. Does our shark hunter ever do anything?
he dies. Uh,
Well, he does die, right?
yeah,
Oh, that's a thing.
because
Yeah.
he's trying to swim in double denim, and you can't do that. It's just a fact of life. Uh,
I'll have you know the last thing the shark said before he ate him was that how fashionable he looked. So yeah, got that going for it. Gloria spends a lot of time screaming.
yep,
Peter shows up in his boat,
and his red
sad that
wetsuit.
his best friend has died, rescues people, which is great. But Peter gets trapped on the dock as it's
I
pulled away
yeah,
by the shark.
I liked that. Like he's getting people off, so he jumps off of his boat onto the raft to push people onto his boat, and then the raft just drifts away, and he's stuck on it. So great. And
That point,
then
Jay, why do you think that nobody who's now on Peter's boat bothered to simply pilot it over and rescue him too?
I wish I had an answer, Kevin. I wish I did, but
So
I
the
don't.
movie can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, the raft drifts away. The people on the boat are just mystified as to what to do at this point. Even though we saw one of them piloting a boat earlier that day, it doesn't matter. Um, but it's okay because the dead Vic Morrow body rocks up with the dynamite belt
Right.
still
He
on it.
floats up to the surface very conveniently.
I mean,
Um,
is the shark just toying with people? Does the shark drag him? Is he
I
just
think the
being a
shark dragged
vindictive?
him. Yeah. Haven't you ever walked out of or seen someone walking out of a bathroom with a bit of toilet paper still attached to the bottom of their shoe?
So he
Right.
just
It's basically the shark dragging Vic Morrow around behind him.
oh, he's so embarrassed.
So
He's
embarrassed.
like he hasn't been to the bathroom for like 3 hours. That's been on his shoe since then. All day he's been dragging around this Vic Morrow. Oh,
All day. The and so our hero, right, Peter pulls the body up onto the deck. The shark tries to eat the wood because that's what sharks do apparently. Peter notices that Vic still has all of the explosive and the detonator on his body.
yeah.
So he does what any friend would do, which is feed him to the shark.
I wanted to say like, oh, goodbye, chum, or something, just some kind of.
Ah!
It would have been great,
Yep.
but no,
Yes.
he feeds Vic Morrow's corpse to the shark, and he prepares to press the detonator. He is on a raft. The raft is out of the water. The shark is, of course, in the water. So he jumps off of the raft into the water, yelling, "Damn you!" as he
No!
goes.
It's like it's like an action movie. There should be doves flying as he jumps sideways. Instead of pistols, he's got the detonator. Yeah. It's unclear. And he just sits there and watches his friend get devoured by the shark. The shark
Yep.
drops down underwater, looking, still sort of tilted to the side a little bit. And as he jumps sideways, screaming, "Damn you," and hits that detonator, the most realistic shark death of any movie we've ever seen.
So this is the shark, the bath toy shark. Well, when it explodes, the head just kind of pops off with a straight line detaching the head from the body. It's like
Ferment
like a
fluid inside.
shampoo bottle or something. So it's a novelty shaped. So it
Oh.
was I was supposed to want a little pop sound effect. It would have just. It's terrible. It's the worst climactic shark death I've ever seen in anything.
Jaws 4 is worse, but it's not great. In Jaws 4, the shark dies basically because of a PTSD flashback from somebody who wasn't even there at the time.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but this is pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie.
It's not
We
great.
don't even see any corpses. Like it pops open and no little tiny dead bodies float out. It's been chowing down all day.
That would have been great if everyone's just still alive in there.
That would be one of the Sharknado movies. Um, the where somebody gives birth inside of a shark. Uh,
Of course.
it, yeah, so
Sure.
that's the way that
Oh
universe
boy.
works. But in this case, the shark anticlimactically pops open and is blown up by a little firecracker from inside of the shark toy. Peter, Peter pilots the boat. I guess the boat comes and picks him up and
Yeah.
comes back and
And gets off
gets off the
land.
boat.
And we see
And
the journalist, the newsman, Bob. He's talking to
yes,
he's talking to a camera. He's like, "Oh, and here's the shark has been vanquished. Everything is saved, apart from the people that died. Here's our hero of the day, Peter. Peter, a word for the people. What have you got to say? You got to say something. Say something." And Peter just thumps him in the face. And
pounds him in the face. To be fair, right? Peter's daughter lost a leg. Peter just lost his best friend who had a bad fake Scottish accent.
yeah,
Peter's been traumatized. He's blown up a shark. It's been a hard couple of days,
true.
and
But he
not
did
one person has mentioned his book.
But he doesn't know the bad things that the reporter has done. Because like
He's not.
when the raft gets detached and pulled out, and the shark cowboy is like, "Call the put us back in," because he's watching on a terminal somewhere. He's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that," and he doesn't do that. And he's the one who had the meat tied to the dock in the first place to draw the shark into them because he wants to see footage of the shark. There's kind of a meta bit earlier in the film where they're looking at the footage they shot of the guy with the megaphone being killed, and they're like, "Oh, the shark's nowhere near this," and his cameraman's like, "Just put some B-roll in there, some like archive footage of a shark. No one will notice." And I'm like, "Wait, hang
Oh
on,
no, no.
did
But
you make this film?"
and you know that he's standing in for the filmmakers
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I did
Oh,
like that. I did like that. Yeah,
yeah.
but we
Peter
don't
ends the
have.
movie still not knowing that the mayor is dead.
This is true. That I mean, he just flew off in his helicopter, never returned. Oh no, they did find his helicopter, the debris of the helicopter in the water. So they know that the helicopter isn't
Oh,
around anymore.
oh
Uh,
dear. Well, they can make assumptions then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
that's the last shark.
yeah, he's the last shark. I just
Mhm.
realized, by the way, that when the shark was threatening the kids, when Jenny lost her leg, at one point the throttle jams because the shark gets cut by the propeller. Shark
Yeah,
never shows up with any injuries on it.
and
Um,
it doesn't just get cut; it just kind of hangs out where the propeller is, and the propeller damn near removes its tail.
that's
It
right.
it's in there for a while.
It's
Yeah,
a brave, powerful, healing shark.
yeah,
Um, and that's the movie. And then a bunch of bad music plays as credits roll.
yeah. So I kind of had a look at some of the cast members, the crew here. One of the writers, a guy called Ramon Bravo, he also did the underwater photography for Leviathan, and License to Kill, the shark stuff
Really?
from that one, which I thought was
Wow.
quite interesting. And I mentioned that lots of the crew and the writers and production team did adult films earlier in their career. Which no shame on that, but it's interesting quite how many did. So, um, and that's one bit we kind of skipped over is when Wells like goes to Ron Hammer and is like, "Do we need like how many boats we need?" And I was like, "8." And he's like, "Oh, make it 10, including yours." And he asks Ron what he wants for this, and Ron's response is, "The head of that great white, that great white, just the head." Wells walks away. Just the head. He's just kind of mumbling. He just wants just the head to himself.
Where's he gonna put just the head? Such a strange request.
And like it's a 30-foot shark. It's got like a 5 foot long head.
Well,
That's
maybe
huge.
he plans to use it as his kitchen decoration. I don't know.
Maybe like that's a kitchen island. That's a whole like surface.
It's right.
Oh dear.
This is an unusual movie, Jay, because the acting's not terrible. Like it's not great, but it's not terrible. The acting is no worse than I think Jaws 2 acting was, which is not fantastic.
Sure.
Um, maybe it's a little worse than that. And they really tried to make a really scary practical shark effect, and they mostly failed, but they really tried on that. But
Yeah.
it still manages to be sort of um sort of boring. I think boring is the
I
correct word
think
here.
the second half, once the shark starts killing people,
Yep.
there's a lot more to enjoy on screen because the deaths are hilarious. But yeah, the first half kind of drags a little bit because a lot of stuff happening off screen, and it's not even like character setup because there's very little character to a lot of these people. But yeah, I think if they'd given the script just another passover to make everything make a little bit more sense, spend a little bit more money and time on those effects, a bit of continuity between the sharks, and like hire actors who are speaking in the language they're supposed to be speaking, I feel like this could be a decent film. But then, would it be as fun to talk about? I don't think it would be.
Would not. It would
Yeah,
not. I really think, the helicopter scene where Wells gets bitten in half and then devoured. And that scene where Peter's on the raft and the shark keeps surfacing off the raft, it really highlights the delight that I think they had with the practical shark effect, which my understanding is was very frustrating to work with, as is most practical shark effects.
yeah,
But that's really for me what separates this movie from a bunch of CGI direct that comes later. I
sure.
like they were trying, right? I give them credit for trying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was expecting this to be just not boring, but just worse, and I enjoyed watching this, so I'm glad this has crossed this off the list now. Good. So
I agree that the fact that they had, the sideways shark rearing up and growling or roaring in order to frighten people sort of elevates it a little bit from movies of that era, like the Burt Reynolds movie. I think it's just called Shark with an
yeah,
exclamation
yeah.
point. Have you seen that one?
Not yet. It's on the list.
Uh,
Uh,
it's it's got a messed up ending. It also has the most realistic depiction of alcoholism that I've ever seen in a movie.
oh, okay.
Um, the and you watch that and you see why Burt Reynolds used to be a sex symbol. It's a weird movie. But other movies of that time, right, which mostly use just stock footage of sharks.
Yeah,
This one, at least they took it a step farther.
absolutely. Yeah, they tried to make some new stuff. So we have two features left to do. Now we talk about Last Shark. How is the Last Shark similar to Deep Blue Sea? I have a list. So first off, there's an early exposition dump from the guy on the radio. It's a very Janice move. An early attack on a small watercraft. Shark knocks somebody off of a small boat. There's a rescue helicopter. They mention Mako and tiger sharks, the two sharks that we see in Deep Blue Sea. As a wealthy benefactor paying for shark-proof fences,
Oh, good
which
catch. Yep.
I mean that's we've not had that one before. That's a very specific. And he says at one point they're 100% safe. Nothing bad will happen. Which no one never say this.
Almost
Never
100%.
say
So
this.
close.
I did like when Ron Hammer is like it's had a taste for human flesh. It'll develop a craving. That's great. Uh, the shark tests and breaks through fences and swims through a hole. There's a man with a camera. Shark attacks a boat with four kids on it, and one of them falls in. There is a lady with a name starting with J who is in the water, struggling to reach somebody above her. Jenny Janice. The shark bites off a limb, and they're taken away in a rescue helicopter. There's a helicopter winch, which the shark pulls it down, breaks it, and destroys the helicopter. Which is very,
Traditional.
very. I feel like Rennie Harlin watched The Last Shark. I'm like, mine. I'm taking that as mine. And they explode a big shark at the end. That happens a lot, but that's how The Last Shark is similar to Deep Blue Sea.
I will add to that, if I may, that I
Please.
think that this shark and the last shark was smarter than your average shark,
Yes,
right? It was a
absolutely.
sharkitect, and that too is similar.
Absolutely, yes. And finally, how deep and how blue is the last shark? So, Kevin, as I'm sure you know, Deep Blue Sea is approximately 14.5 meters or 47.5 feet deep, 31% blue. Do you think that the action on screen in The Last Shark is, on average, deeper and or bluer than in Deep Blue Sea?
I think the last shark is shallower and spent a lot of time out in the water. I gotta say it's bluer but shallower.
You
How'd
are
I do?
exactly correct. Both counts. Well done. So yeah, so we didn't get exact depth at any point, but I kind of estimated. And it's a lot of stuff on land, a lot of it's up in a helicopter, up in a hospital, etc. So this works out being about 2.2 meters or 7.2 feet deep, which puts it 33rd on our list. It's slightly deeper than Deep Blue Sea 3. Not quite as deep as Exorcist: The Beginning, a Rainy Harlan film. That's why that's on there. Blueness, this is about 52% blue. This is a very blue film. This is our 11th bluest film. Bluer than the deep, less blue than Avatar: The Way of Water.
Oh,
Uh,
that's pretty darn blue.
it
Even
is.
though the sky kept changing, the amount of clouds and blue sky and the grayness and greenness and blueness of the water
Yep,
shifted every time that they used a different filming location.
that is all very true. Yes, it's, yeah, I don't think any of this was real at all. So yeah, this is nowhere near as deep as Empire of the Sharks ended up being. But is it bluer than Empire of the Sharks? Where's that on the list? I should have checked that.
Oh, Empire.
Where is the con?
I
I'm
love to
bad.
hate you.
Bad. It's slight. It is actually a lot bluer than Empire of the Sharks. Empire of the Sharks is 33.95. So yeah, this is your shallowest but bluest of your films that you picked so far. So that'll do it for the last shot. Kevin, thank you for joining me. Do you have anything you want to plug? Where can the listeners find you elsewhere?
Jay, I am so delighted to be back on the show. Thank you again so much. Nothing so much that I want to plug. I think I've got a new game, a new role playing game out last summer called Swords of the Serpentine. It's old school swords and sorcery without the racism and sexism. So that's turning out to be a lot of fun. Um, But nothing that I need to plug on the show thing. Can be found on Blue Sky at Kevin Kulp. And I'm on Reddit with my master list of shark movies at Serpentine RPG.
The master list from this podcast. We've taken.
I actually
Basically, I just copied
it's not
your
up to
list.
date. I have another 7 or 8 movies to add to that, so I'll
fantastic.
update that in the next week or so in order to get, or create a new list in order to get that back up to speed.
And I'll add those to my spreadsheet as well.
Spectacular.
Excellent. Well, you can find this podcast all over social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod. Find everything Mark does over at moviesfilmsandflicks.com and everything I do over at lifeversusfilm.com. And next week on the show, we're back to Rennie Harlin for 5 Days of War, another film that I've never seen before.
Four sharks.
I think it has I'm reliably told that it has an exploding helicopter in it, but that's all I know about 5 Days of War.
Don't tell Vic Morrow.
I've had it on DVD for years, but never watched it, and now I finally will. So that's next week. But as for today, as for The Last Shark, thank you once again to my guest Kevin Sideways Shark Kulp. I have been Jake Lur, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.